So here I am, sitting on a mountain, hanging out on the Inochi2D Discord. All in all, a very typical Wednesday. But then, a help thread called Wind Support ? And that's when I noticed my beautiful hair was not swaying in the wind like it was supposed to. This simply cannot be. So after theorizing a bit with Bronwyn, I set about changing that. Ha, you thought this was gonna be a story? No, you fell for my evil scheme, buddy. This is a tutorial for Inochi2D on how to do hair in wind. A small disclaimer, this tutorial does assume that you rigged your hair as I described in my previous tutorial linked in the info box. Let's start with a light flutter, which sounds like a dating app, but let's ignore that part, okay? The flutter is very simple. We simply make a 2D parameter which moves our physics up, down, left and right. I would suggest that you separate all of your individual strands. That way all the strands flow in a different way. If you want them all to flow the same, you can still later change that in session. So in Creator, I would suggest separating all the strands into different parameters. Now in session, the magic happens. First, we will change all of these parameters to expression bindings. Now that that's done, the function we will be passing is uSimplex. Simplex is a noise function like white noise, but instead of every value being random, which leads to this, it is a lot more coherent while still being random, so it looks like this. This will give our hair a nice ebb and flow. Our function has one dimension less, so it actually looks like this. To actually get changing values, we need to pass time into the simplex function. Because simplex now gives us values between -1 and 1, but our expression binding actually only wants 0 to 1. We need to compress it by simply adding the u, which stands for unsigned, and then we have the function we want. Now let's be honest, this looks a little bit too much for a light breeze. So what we want to do is we want to divide our time by something like 5. You might want to choose different values, and this will slow it down significantly. Now we do this for all. Now everything is a lot slower, but everything still moves as one unit. If you want that, you are done here. If you don't want that, you might want to add some sort of different in the divider we give to time. So something like 0.01, and this will immediately give it a very different value after a couple of seconds. So we simply count up for all of these. Now that we change the divider for every single parameter, the flow is different for each strand. So if you want that, you know how to do it. To actually get stronger wind that moves our hair, we need a parameter that actually activates it. So in my case, I have the side wind parameter here, which goes from 0 to 1. If you want it in both directions, just go from -1 to 1 and then mirror the whole thing. For this activation, we want to rotate all of our hair, right? In the direction we want the wind to blow it. So I want it to go on -45 degrees. So I rotate it like this. It is important to only rotate the hair, and if for some reason your origin point isn't at the root of the hair, there are two ways you can fix that. First is you use the texture offset and move the texture of your hair down to match the origin point. Now when you rotate it, it actually rotates around this. Or if you already made all of your other parameters, what I did is you can simply add a new node, move this to the origin point, and then you drag your hair into this node. And when you go back into the parameter, you can simply use your node to rotate the whole thing by -45 degrees around the root of the hair and not the origin point of the hair. If you have something like this, where the cutting of your model doesn't allow for any rotation. What you can do as a workaround is you can select all of your physics and instead rotate the physics in the opposite direction, which should then have them stand in that direction. This will look kinda wavy, and depending on how far you rig your physics, it might limit some movement on the upper bounds, but it does work. Okay, now let's be honest, this does still look kind of stupid. But I have a plan to fix that. And the plan is that we simply make them flutter really strong. Okay, now that the hair is fluttering really strong, it still kinda looks wrong. That is because the wind pulls the hair in the direction it's getting pushed a lot stronger than normal gravity would pull it down. So what we need to do is we need to go back to creator and go into our side wind parameter, go into the wind position, and then we will select all of our physics that is tied to hair individually and increase the gravity scale to something like 4. 4 works great for me, so should also be a good starting point for you. And we simply do that for all of them in the wind position, of course. Once we switch over to a session, why is there someone here? Hey, you. Me? Yes, you. Like, subscribe. Now. Okay, that was weird. Better do what he says though. Okay, so now that we're in session, I activate my wind with a keyboard toggle, which means it jumps immediately from 0 to 1, which is why I apply a dampen parameter, so it has a little bit of a rise and fall to it. Now we need to differentiate between a light breeze and an actual strong wind, so that way our flutter can actually get stronger or weaker depending on whether the wind is activated or not. To do that, we use a simple if condition that checks the same parameter that our wind toggle uses. That way, if there is no wind, we use a normal flutter, and if there is wind, we put in the same formula but change the time divider to something lower, like just 1. Then we can make all the dividers a slightly different value to get different flutter for all different strands, and we're done. Okay, I do admit this still looks kind of weird, but I promise that if you have a model with a lot more hair strands where you don't look bald when they fly away, it will look a lot better. And now we can stand atop our castle wall and pretend the world is an idyllic place because we can't see the enemies charging at our gates because we have the hair in our eyes.